James Fallow has been doing a series of questions about the Syrian, about getting involved in Syria. And he posted an email that he got from William Polk, who was a State Department um, official in the Kennedy administration. And he, among the other things that he talks about, it's a fascinating piece. It's a long read. You should read it. But one of the things that he mentions, which has, as far as I can tell, gotten zero media coverage in contextualizing all this. He writes, Syria has been convulsed by civil war since climate change came to Syria with a vengeance. Now, understand, we have been hearing, and we know that the Pentagon views climate change as one of the top security threats that this country faces going forward in the future. We have heard about, how this may impact, domestic politics insofar as we're talking about wildfires. We're talking about more money for extreme weather, things like Sandy, Katrina. We could be losing Miami in the next 20 to 30, 40 years. The other way that this is going to affect this country, if it's not enough for you to appreciate how devastating climate change is going to be in terms of creating droughts and refugees around the world and what it may do just to our civilization writ large by the end of the century, understand that it's going to directly implicate the United States in terms of the way that about war and spending money and all of it. And this is a perfect example. Drought devastated the country from 2006 to 2011. Desperate for waters, farmers began to tap aquifers with tens of thousands of new wells. But as they did, the water table quickly dropped to a level below which their pumps could lift it. In some areas, all agriculture ceased. In others, crop failures reached 75%. And generally, as much as 85% of livestock died of thirst or hunger. Hundreds of thousands of Syrian farmers gave up. They abandoned their farms. They headed to the cities and towns to look for non-existent jobs, creating food shortages, creating overcrowding in the cities, creating more social pressure. Outside observers, including UN experts at the time, estimated that between 2 and 3 million of Syria's 10 million rural inhabitants were reduced to extreme poverty. Syrian domestic refugees found that they had to compete not only for scarce food, water, and jobs, but with an already existing foreign refugee population. There's 250,000 Palestinians and about 100,000 people who had fled the occupation of Iraq in Syria. The senior UN Food and Agricultural Organization representative in Syria at that time turned to the U.S. aid program for help, terming the situation a perfect storm. In November of 2008, he warned that Syria faced social destruction. He noted the Syrian Minister of Agriculture had stated publicly that the economic and social fallout from the drought was beyond our capacity as a country to deal with. USAID director commented that we question whether limited USG government resources should be directed toward this appeal at this time. In other words, we had no money to support that appeal. It was downgraded as a priority, and or there was political pressure to make Syria suffer. Lured by the high price of wheat on the world market, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Syria sold 1.5 million metric tons of their wheat reserves, twice that they had in 2005. The next year, it had little left to export in 2008, and the rest of the drought years, it had to import more wheat to keep its citizens fed, obviously creating financial duress. So he refers to this as the tinderbox. And when a small group gathered in the town of Dara to protest against the government failure to help them, the whole thing exploded back in 2011. And obviously, it was also part of the Arab Spring, which, as we mentioned with Matt Duss, was also a function of economics. But in this case, it was economics where the situation was exacerbated by global climate change. And it's not hard to see the paradigm here that's being set up. Global climate change creates situations on the ground that destabilizes countries all around the world. We end up getting drawn into conflicts that end up being fought over the most basic of resources: food, water, shelter. So the idea that this is not being contextualized in this way is doing a great disservice to the country and to the policy it pursues in the future, because it again does not reveal what is such a massive problem now and looming in our future. So every time we hear Syria, there should be some commentator saying, how could we pass Keystone XL with this? Every time we hear Syria, somebody should be saying, how can we not be addressing climate change in our own country and using that as to send a message to the rest of the world?